Who said that a mechanic cannot become a doctor? Just replace the patient's organs with mechanical ones. Li Yu, who returned from overtime, was turned into an anime by a mud cart and sent to the different world of steam and magic. Good news. 2 systems have been obtained. Bad news. Both systems are only half. Steampunk+Mech+Daily. Chapter 1. A mechanic disguised as a doctor. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Grand City. The sunlight penetrated the exhaust gas emitted by the factory and shone on the street, causing everyone on the street to hurry. As the largest industrial city in the entire Elliott Federation, over 70% of ordinary citizens here are directly or indirectly engaged in factory-related work. So the period before the factory starts construction is the busiest and most dynamic time in the entire city. Of course, there are some people who are out of place in this busy atmosphere. And among these out-of-place people naturally include the physician Manolan sitting in a clinic on the street corner. In this 3-story clinic located on the busiest street in the city, Hongfenji Street. Manolan was wearing a white coat, with a stethoscope hanging around his neck and a pocket watch in his arms. Wearing this dog-like figure, anyone who sees it will feel that he is a doctor with superb medical skills. However, what is the real situation? Manolan himself knows best. Don't look at him on the surface. Actually, his heart was very anxious. He is not only not a real doctor, but also not the original Manolan. The current Manolan is actually a traveler named Li Yu. The reason why Li Yu crossed here was that he was turned into an anime by a mud cart that ran wildly in the middle of the night. As for later, it was time to travel to this unlucky guy named Manolan. As for why is it called the original owner unlucky? After Manolan absorbed and fused the memories of the original owner, the label of unlucky person became his first impression. When browsing through the memories of the original owner at the beginning of his journey, Li Yu could only hold a handful of heartfelt tears for the tragic life of the original owner. In his past life, Li Yu once read a joke and an epitaph. There was a person who started learning literature but didn't make it for 3 years. Later, while practicing martial arts, he shot an arrow at the school field, hitting the drummer and being driven out by someone. Finally, I studied medicine and thought I had achieved something. Write your own prescription and drink it before hanging it. And the life of the original Lord can't be said to be totally different from this joke, it can only be said to be exactly the same. The original owner Manolan was born into a merchant family. Not to mention wealth, it can also be said that one has a small family fortune. After the original owner's parents died in an accident, he was supposed to inherit the family business and continue doing business. In less than half a year, the entire company was wiped out due to poor management. Then he thought about entering politics and taking the civil service exam. At the beginning, he got first place in the written exam and was quite happy, feeling that it was a steady move. The result is a mix of joy and sorrow. He accidentally bumped the examiner into a cesspool while using the restroom before the interview. Later, because all the staff went to catch the examiner, the interview exam was naturally cancelled. And Manolan, who had caused great trouble, was naturally permanently disqualified from the exam. Fortunately, Manolan's parents left him with a lot of connections, otherwise this matter wouldn't have ended well. After his political career was blocked, he thought of joining the army again. However, Manolan still hasn't gotten rid of bad luck. He accurately hit the instructors but on the first shot during shooting training. Lucky in misfortune. The instructor who was hit in the buttocks by him has good strength and was not killed by this shot. After being beaten and fined, he was kicked out of the military camp by the instructor. Before being driven out of the military camp, the instructor threatened Manolan to hit him once he saw him. After this series of blows, Manolan didn't want to tinker around anymore. He returned to his parents' only remaining estate, this 3-story building, and opened a clinic. However, misfortune did not just leave Manolan like this. After trying the potion recipe in the notes of the alchemist profession he had prepared himself, if nothing unexpected happened. The original owner Manolan left this tragic world forever. He was poisoned to death by the medicine he had prepared himself. This can be said to be natural. It is almost impossible for ordinary people to successfully prepare potions prepared by the profession of medicine refiners. You should know that the official promotion requirement for the profession of alchemist is to successfully prepare a bottle of magical potion. Refining magic potions is not something that can be easily refined just by reading a book. A person like the original owner, who cannot even distinguish the medicinal properties of each potion, wants to succeed by having a wild imagination. And the traveler Li Yu also crossed into this world after Manolan's death and merged into this unlucky Manolan's body. Thinking of this, Li Yu silently opened the system. A semi-transparent light curtain unfolded in front of Li Yu. The strongest mechanist/physician system occupation. Mechanist, level. LV1, 35 out of 100, talent. Dexterity, LV1, you have a pair of agile hands that can flexibly manufacture and control machinery. Metal control, LV1, you can control changes in the shape and properties of metal within a small range. Task. Novice task, treat your first patient in life, 0/1, reward mechanics with 50 experience points and 1 secondary mechanical drawing. I don't know if it's due to bad luck on the original owner, or maybe Li Yu himself is also an unlucky person. His golden finger system is a rather bizarre chimeric system. His system is like cutting two systems apart and then firmly bonding them together. Just like two embryos in a pregnant woman's belly, devouring each other, the two systems merge into a new system. It is said to be a physician system, but the initial profession gifted by the system is the mechanist profession, and the rewards obtained are also related experience and drawings of the mechanist. It is said to be a mechanic system, but the task released is about treating diseases and saving people. Of course, the most important thing is that the speed at which a mechanic gains experience through daily practice is very slow. Slow to the normal speed of only ordinary professionals. On the contrary, when Manolan was reading medical books to learn medical knowledge and practicing surgery, the mechanic's experience bar actually increased very quickly. Manolan can only roast about this. This garbage system is just learned from the steel smelting animation. In the original world, he had already suffered from the spiritual pollution of the steel refining Big Brother, but he did not expect to suffer this kind of torture in a different world. However, although the system is a bit outrageous, it's fortunate for Manolan to have a functional system. What other bike do they want? Every time Manolan opens the system page, he will use words like, "It's not that it can't be used, at least it's much stronger than a non-system walkthrough," to convince himself. It has been a week since the traveler Manolan arrived in this world. After overcoming his initial panic, he gradually accepted the status quo. Now there is a very important question in front of him. He has no money. The inheritance left to him by the original owner's parents was lost in a series of bizarre events. And the last sum of money from the original owner was used to purchase drugs and medical equipment. This also means that if Li Yu doesn't make any further progress, he will have to sell his house or work in a factory without considering the outrageous situation of his golden finger. These two options are not very good choices for Li Yu or the current Manolan. Selling the house and giving up the clinic, Manolan can only sit idly by. And becoming a worker in a factory is even more of a dead end. Leaving aside his past life, he worked in a factory after graduating from university and had enough of the life of a factory dog. Just talking about the working environment of factories in this world is not where people should stay. Compared to the former world factory owners, the black factories have become paradise, and capitalists are all great benevolent people who serve the country and the people. All the factory owners in this world who have not yet received the education of the worker grandfather's hammer are not human beings. Factory owners who work 12 hours a day can now be called philanthropists, and those who work 14 to 16 hours are everywhere. As for other labor protections, they are almost non-existent, and the use of child labor is a common sense. It's better to kill him directly than to let him work in the factories of this world. According to someone stealing an electric battery, it is impossible to work as a laborer. Since it's impossible to work, Manolan can only find a way to open the clinic. Although the original owner had attended universities in this world, according to the average level of education in this world, college students are already considered advanced intellectuals. But Manolan studied literature, while medicine was just his elective major. For medical knowledge, Manolan can only say that he has it, but not much. He can say that he has 2 brushes, but only these 2 brushes. Now Manolan can only rely on himself to open the clinic. Fortunately, medicine in this world is quite underdeveloped, and it can even be said to be very backward compared to previous lives. Although the medical skills in this world are not like those of medieval European doctors who only knew how to bleed and enema, they also do not have a comprehensive and systematic system like modern medicine. Although Manolan studied mechanical engineering in his previous life, he only had some common sense about medical knowledge. But with the addition of the original owner's memory, the medical books that have been extensively replenished in the past few days, and the most important special talents sent by the system, this makes him somewhat confident in treating minor illnesses and injuries. Although Manolan was uncertain, he had no other choice but to grit his teeth in the face of the current situation. Not treating the dead or being chased by patients is considered a success. Manolan cheered himself in his heart. Just as Manolan was thinking this, the first patient happened to come knocking on the door. A middle-aged woman walked in with a young man holding his arm. Middle-aged women dress elegantly, and judging by their attire, they are probably middle-class. The young man was tall and muscular, silently clutching his arms and following behind the middle-aged woman. As soon as she pushed open the door of the clinic, the middle-aged woman shouted in her typical loud voice, "Doctor, come and take a look at my son's injury. His arm has been cut by a robber." Manolan saw the patient come to his door and suppressed his anxiety about his medical skills. He stood up, tidied up his white coat, and then led the mother and son to the consultation room. There were originally 2 consultation rooms in the clinic, but one of them was filled with miscellaneous items by the original owner. Actually, this is not an isolated case. This 3-story clinic, including the basement, is cluttered with various things. These things were all moved out of other properties that had already been sold after the original owner went bankrupt. The more valuable items among them have been sold by the original owner, leaving behind only some rags. Manolan asked the young man to sit on a chair in the consultation room and took out the alcohol used for disinfection and the needle and thread used for suturing the wound. After putting on gloves, Manolan began examining the young man's wounds. Manolan looked at the wound and saw that although the young man's wound was long but not deep, he let go of his suspended heart. This is the wound he can currently handle. Manolan hasn't been idle this week. Apart from reading medical books, most of his time has been spent practicing trauma management, and now it's where he comes in handy. With debridement, disinfection, and suturing, Manolan successfully completed the treatment. Although this is his first time suturing on a human body, his talent for agility has given him a decent appearance in the stitched wound. Of course, it cannot be compared to those professional doctors in previous lives. Fortunately, in this world where medicine is not well developed, doctors only require the ability to sew on injuries, regardless of whether they look good or not. The current suture level of Manolan can only be said to be sufficient. Chapter 2. Secondary Mechanical Prosthetics. Arms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During the process of dealing with young people's wounds, the middle-aged woman introduced her name as Susanna. He is the owner of a clothing store on nearby Good Luck Street. And her son's name is Edward, who is a student of the Grand Naval Academy. Because the school is on vacation, I am helping at Susanna's store. In this world where extraordinary knowledge is monopolized by the upper class, the most promising way for ordinary people to acquire extraordinary knowledge is to enter major universities or join the military. And the Grand Naval Academy was among the top in the entire old world. The students in the school can be said to be the backbone of the future Navy. Most of the student families in this college are either wealthy or wealthy, and it is not easy for small business families like Edward to be admitted to Grand Naval Academy. From this, it can be seen that Edward's talent and hard work are among the most outstanding among ordinary people. Upon learning of Edward's status as a transcendent, Manolin was quite envious. As for why Manolin has not yet gained extraordinary power after going to college, that can only be said to be a sad story. Almost all extraordinary professions require talent, and without talent, no matter how hard you work, it's useless. Manolin's talent is very poor in this category, but he is also weak and sickly. Even warriors with lower requirements for talent are difficult to find employment. It can be said that Manolin's extraordinary journey has been sentenced to death. And the reason why he was able to attend university, apart from his good academic level, is largely due to the financial resources and relationships of his parents. People like Manolin who have seen extraordinary things but have not had the chance to obtain them can be said to be quite pitiful. However, compared to a large number of ordinary people, Manolin is still relatively lucky. He has at least been exposed to the extraordinary and attempted to become a transcendent, while ordinary people do not even have the opportunity to do so. As for the reason for Edward's injury, it is not complicated, but it is a very common knife robbery in Grand City. When two robbers threatened Edward with knives, it was impossible for him, a reserve naval officer and a first-class soldier, to honestly hand over the money. For Edward, if his classmates find out about this and he is robbed by two thugs, then he doesn't have to attend this naval school anymore. Losing money is small, losing face is big. Edward paid no attention to the threat of the robbers. After all, Edward is an extraordinary professional, and it is impossible to defeat armed criminals. He first grabbed the wrist of the robber who threatened him with a knife with his left hand, then lowered his center of gravity and swung his fist with his right hand. This punch hit the gangster's jaw, and the gangster fell back unconscious in a daze. The other gangster, who was standing a little further away, was stunned or stood still in shock when he saw this scene. Edward naturally couldn't give up this opportunity. He rushed up to the criminal in just a few steps and kicked him. The criminal got kicked and rolled out several meters, lying motionless underground. As for the injury on Edward's arm, it was because he didn't expect that the robbers were actually three people. There was also a robber responsible for watching the wind at the door. That windward guy didn't dare to force himself when he saw Edward so fierce. He hid next to the store door, and when Edward went out to call the sheriff, he ambushed Edward behind the door. However, Edward reacted in time and blocked the approaching short knife with his arm. And during the time when the patrol arrived, they brutally beat up the guy who attacked. Although novice professionals have mastered extraordinary powers, they are not far behind ordinary people. If they are not careful, they may still be injured by ordinary people. Originally, Manolin saw Edward not say a word after entering the door, thinking he was a quiet person. Unexpectedly, just as Susanna started speaking, Edward began to talk incessantly. When he talked about the plot of his battle with the robbers, he was in high spirits. Manolin believed that if it weren't for him stitching the wound, Edward could have jumped up and recreated the short play with a scene on the spot. After wrapping the wound with gauze, Manolin instructed Edward. If you want to recover quickly, you need to keep the wound dry, avoid touching water, exercise vigorously, and drink alcohol. Don't forget to come to my place to change your dressing in the next 2 days. Of course, you can also buy some medicine and change it yourself at home. For extraordinary professionals like Edward, the speed of recovery is very fast. If it weren't for Susanna's insistence, he would have been ready to sew it himself. After instructing Edward, Manolin collected a total of 30 silver coins for this consultation. This price is not expensive. In this city, a worker's daily salary is about 10 silver coins, while 30 silver coins is the 3-day salary of an ordinary worker. After throwing away the money for medical consumables, Manolin earned about 10 silver coins, which can be said to be very conscientious. Susanna has no objection to the cost of the diagnosis. Quickly, he took out 3 10-silver banknotes from his small bag and handed them to Manolin. After the mother and son left the clinic, Manolin opened the system page, and the task column of the system was already displayed as completed. Manolin clicked on the task with his mind, and the system page popped up an option to claim the reward. He naturally chose the option to claim it. Task completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 50 career experience points. Secondary mechanical prosthetics. Arm drawing. Manolin clicked on the drawing information, secondary mechanical prosthetics. Arms, mechanical prosthetics powered by steam have poor flexibility and can only engage in low-intensity combat. As the blueprint flickered, all the knowledge about the secondary mechanical prosthetic arm flooded into his mind. Manolin carefully read the entire set of drawings and couldn't close his mouth with joy. This set of drawings is powered by steam and controlled by magic. This also includes the technology of nerve, muscle, and mechanical connections required for installing prosthetics. These novel and advanced technologies have had a huge impact on Manolin's knowledge system in both his past and present lives. However, among these novel technologies, the one that satisfied him the most was the technology of connecting nerves, muscles, and machinery. There are many benefits to Manolin's medical skills in this technology. Manolin believes that when he fully absorbs this technology, he can surpass most doctors in the world in dealing with nerve and muscle injuries. With these, he can truly have the confidence to become a doctor in trauma management. And this reduced the pressure he was under in his heart. Thinking of this, he simply walked to the entrance of the clinic and hung a sign of closure. After locking the door, Manolin climbed up the stairs to the 3rd floor. There were 3 rooms on the 3rd floor, one containing medical supplies and the other a miscellaneous room. And the last one is the workshop that Manolin cleaned up himself. Manolin pushed open the door of the workshop and saw a huge wooden long table in the middle of the room, on which various colored ores and metal ingots were placed. Metal control ability can extract metals from ores, although the efficiency of LV1 level metal control ability extraction is very low, it is still acceptable for current Manolin. After all, the current Manolin does not have a significant use for metals. He sat on the chair in front of the wooden table and began using his metal control ability to create various parts needed for the secondary mechanical prosthetic arm. Every time a part is produced, he uses measuring tools to measure it, and any non-conforming parts are repaired using metal control capabilities, which neither wastes materials nor time. Probably due to the combined effect of the mechanist profession and the dexterity talent, Manolin's processed parts are very accurate and rarely used for reheating. Until the sun sets, the indoor light begins to dim. Manolin has just completed the manufacturing of all the parts of a mechanical prosthetic. After seeing that the sky was slightly dark, he took out a metal box from the drawer of the wooden table. Open the box, there are more than 10 dark red small squares inside. He pinched out one of the small squares with a clip and placed it on a lighter to light. After more than 10 seconds of grilling, the dark red cubes were ignited by flames, and the small cubes emitted a bright and stable flame. He opened the lampshade of the glass lamp on the table and placed the small square inside. Although it has been a week, Manolin still feels magical about this small dark red cube that can burn steadily for several hours by igniting it. According to the original owner's memory, the dark red small square was pressed from the powder of the world's most basic and important industrial fuel, pyroxene, and other materials. This specially made small square is very magical. It only needs to light one to illuminate the entire studio. This world is similar but different from the period of the first industrial revolution in previous lives. The similarity is that both worlds use steam power as their power source. The difference is that the fuel for steam engines in this world is not coal, but phlogiston stone. Probably because phlogiston stone is so useful compared to coal, the world is completely heading in the direction of steam machinery and never returns. Various steam-powered machinery is flourishing, not to mention steam cars and steamships, even some large-caliber guns are also mechanically powered. Another difference between this world and the past is that it has extraordinary power. Professionals and gods who control extraordinary powers are real beings in this world. Some powerful professionals can even single-handedly destroy cities and armies. And precisely because of this, the royal family and nobility, who were supposed to have declined with the development of Industrial Revolution productivity like in previous lives, relied on extraordinary power and were not greatly affected by the Industrial Revolution. Chapter 3. Upgrading LV2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The light emitted by the burning small squares in the glass lampshade illuminated all corners of his studio. He began assembling the prosthetic limb with the help of this light. Although the structure of prosthetics is complex, it cannot be difficult for Mechanist. Leaving aside his previous life as a mechanical repairman, relying solely on the knowledge and skills brought by the profession of a mechanic, assembling prosthetics is just a matter of holding hands for him. After about half an hour of assembly, the parts that were originally filled almost the entire table were combined into a brand new robotic arm. The silver-white metallic color gives the entire arm a sci-fi feel. The magical patterns engraved on the mechanical prosthetics emit a faint light, slowly absorbing elements that flow from the air, which gives the mechanical prosthetics a mysterious outer layer. He was very satisfied with the mechanical prosthetic, which looked like a work of art. If I had this skill before time travel, would I still be angry with that beast boss? After appreciating his own works and thinking about some things he didn't have, a pang of hunger hit him. At this moment, he remembered that he was so fascinated by researching and manufacturing mechanical prosthetics. He had nothing to eat today except for a piece of black bread and a cup of coffee for breakfast. He stood up from the wooden table and stretched out his already sedentary and numb body. Mechanist picked up the pyroxene lamp and walked to the kitchen located on the second floor of the clinic. Due to financial constraints, besides black bread, there were only some mushrooms, carrots, and half a stick of bacon in the kitchen. Although he is a person who loves food very much, due to the current situation, he can only make do with eating some. After not much thought, Mechanist decided to make a mushroom broth to pair with black bread. The cleaned mushrooms and carrots were cut into small pieces and put into the pot. Mechanist hesitated for a moment but still couldn't bear to eat all the bacon. He divided the bacon into two parts, put one part back in the cabinet, and cut the other half into small pieces like mushrooms and carrots and put them in the pot. While waiting for the mushroom broth to cook, Mechanist didn't idle either. He picked up a medical book and started reading it. The upgrade is not far away, and he is still looking forward to the mechanical engineer profession being promoted to LV2. 20 minutes have passed, and the mushroom broth in the pot has already been cooked. He put down his book and walked to the pot. After sprinkling salt and a small amount of pepper into the pot, he took out the broth and placed it on the dining table along with black bread. He broke the hard black bread into small pieces and soaked them in the broth, softening the black bread. Because Mechanist does not have any deities of faith, he also does not have a habit of praying before meals. After he waited for the broth to cool slightly, he ate all the mushroom broth and black bread into his stomach. After finishing his meal, Mechanist cleaned the bowls, spoons, and iron pots, and then conducted a tour of the entire clinic while disinfecting. It has to be said that the family background of Mechanist's original owner was still very solid before he was defeated. The furniture, carpets, and materials used for decoration in this three-story building are all very good, and outsiders can see the prosperity of the owner's house as soon as they enter. Unfortunately, due to the lack of careful cleaning and maintenance for a long time, these things appear somewhat outdated. After inspecting the entire small building, Mechanist found no abnormalities and returned to the second-floor room where he had a bedroom and study. From dinner to sleep, it was all Mechanist's time to study medicine and read medical books. He changed into his pajamas and sat down at the desk to start reading the medical book that he had not yet finished when cooking. With the knowledge about nerves and muscles instilled in him through the drawings of the secondary mechanical prosthetic arm, his knowledge of trauma management has become increasingly advanced. For this medical book that teaches about the treatment of nerves and muscles, it makes it easier for him to read. The more he read, the more relaxed he became. He flipped through 4 or 5 medical books related to these in a row. It wasn't until the clock of the clock tower rang out 11 times, and the light of the pyroxene lamp began to dim, that Manolin lay down on the bed after a simple wash. After a day of accumulation, Manolin was very tired. After just closing his eyes for a moment, he fell into a deep sleep on the soft big bed. Dong! 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 With 6 chimes ringing from the bell tower of the central church in the city, the entire city of Gran woke up like a giant beast. The workers either crowded on steam buses, rode bicycles, or walked to the factory. The factories were like giant beasts eating the numb workers into their stomachs. The captain woke up the sailors who were sleeping in the tavern with a hangover and drove them back onto the ship to prepare for navigation. And Manolin naturally put on a white coat and sat behind the clinic counter waiting for the patient to arrive. Perhaps due to the strong wind last night, the haze shrouded in the city has been reduced, and the long-awaited good weather has made Manolin feel both physically and mentally happy. He opened the system panel. The strongest mechanist/physician system occupation. Mechanist level. LV1, 98 out of 100, talent. Dexterity, LV1, you have a pair of agile hands that can flexibly manufacture and control machinery. Metal control, you can control changes in the shape and properties of metal within a small range. Task. Beginner, successfully treat 10 patients, 0/10, and reward 100 points of experience with secondary mechanical drawings multiplied by 2. The beginner task in the system panel has been replaced with a new task. With yesterday's experience in suturing Edward's wounds and learning more medical knowledge, the mechanic's professional experience has also increased to 98 points, which also indicates that Manolin only needs 2 points of experience to upgrade. As a gamer, it is very uncomfortable to see this experience bar that only upgrades with 2 points. He is prepared to strive to fully upgrade this experience bar this morning. A morning passed and 2 patients arrived at the clinic, one of whom had a simple fever and cold. After inquiring about the patient's condition, Manolin measured his temperature and examined a series of routine tests such as tongue coating. After confirming that it was a minor cold, I prescribed some fever-reducing medication as usual and asked the patient to go back to rest. As for the other patient, due to the complexity of their condition, Manolin was not sure what the disease was. He could only recommend this patient to other clinics or large hospitals for treatment. Although somewhat unwilling, it concerns the safety of the patient, so he naturally did not force himself to treat the patient. After treating a patient with a cold, Manolin's mechanic profession also experienced an upgrade. Level. LV2, 1/200, as the level increased, Manolin felt that his physical fitness and reaction speed had also improved. Although he did not immediately reach the level of Superman, he was still much stronger than before. Additionally, 2 skills have been improved, both of which have been upgraded from LV1 to LV2. Chapter 4. Visits of Teacher Stantel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Manolin first clenched his fist and felt the upgraded power. However, due to the lack of any reference points, he didn't know how much his strength had increased, but compared to the original owner's weak chicken body, he definitely improved a lot. The improvement in mechanical control talent is quite significant. As Manolin tested using several metal ingots, he gained some understanding of the upgraded metal control talent. The ability to control metals has increased significantly. Originally, Manolin could only control the metal in the front half-meter of his body. After the talent level was upgraded to LV2, he was able to control the range of metal up to 1 meter, and the speed of controlling metal deformation and metal property changes was faster. Looking at the wriggling metal in his hand, Manolin couldn't help but fantasize that when his talent level was elevated to a higher level, he could control the metal to ascend to the heavens and descend to the earth like a certain American character named Magneto, who is actually Iron King. Dingling. 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 The crisp sound of the clinic gate colliding with copper bells interrupted Manolin's imagination. An old man in a dignified dress walked in with a cane in one hand and a large paper bag in the other. The old man's beard and hair were graying, but his eyes were very sharp, and his agile steps did not show any signs of old age. He strode towards the counter where Manolin was located. Upon seeing the old man, Manolin instinctively stood up in front of him. "Teacher Stantel, why did you come to my place?" Upon hearing Manolin's words, Stantel snorted coldly in response. "I heard that your clinic was closed for a week a while ago. What's going on? The clinic can't continue either." Manolin quickly explained to Stantel, "Teacher Stantel, I recently closed down to study medicine because I felt my medical skills were insufficient." Stantel heard that Manolin was not planning to close down, and his tone eased slightly. He nodded at Manolin. "Not bad, learning more medical skills is responsible for both yourself and the patient." Stantel, who was very satisfied with Manolin's answer, sat on the chair at the clinic. Manolin quickly placed the teacup left by the original owner in the clinic on the table in front of Stantel and brewed black tea. The reason why Manolin shows such respect to Stantel is not only because Stantel is a professor at Manolin University. Another important reason is that Stantel is a close friend of the original owner's parents and has provided a lot of help to the original owner. From the passing of the original owner's parents to his time traveling, if it weren't for Stantel's help, all the things that happened to the original owner, not to mention leaving behind a 3-story building, might have been taken away. Furthermore, the reason why Manolin was able to attend university was also partly aided by Stantel. Stantel put down his teacup and took out a letter from his pocket, saying, "I won't say much more nonsense. Take this letter to the school's medical school and find their vice dean, old Henry. He has some friendship with me. If you have any questions about medicine in the future, just seek his guidance." After speaking, Stantel pointed to the paper bag placed on the table again. "Also, I'm afraid you'll starve to death, so I brought you some bread baked by Aunt Linda and smoked bacon. And, your Aunt Linda is also missing you a bit. Come to my house to see her when you have time." Henry Swift is the vice dean of the School of Medicine at Grand Public University and one of the best and most prestigious doctors in the city of Gran. Being able to seek advice from this medical expert is a dream for all aspiring medical professionals. Manolin took the envelope from Stantel's hand and looked at the paper bag on the table with a grateful expression on his face. Manolin is very grateful for Stantel's actions. In this lonely world, someone genuinely cares about and helps him, which makes him feel very good. Stantel saw Manolin's expression and impatiently waved his hand. "I'll leave first when I see you're still alive. I still have my class in the afternoon." "Wait, Teacher Stantel, I have something else I want to show you. It's a mechanical prosthetic I made myself." Seeing Stantel getting up and wanting to leave, Manolin quickly blocked him. He quickly ran up the stairs, ready to show Stantel the mechanical prosthetic. Watching Manolin disappear at the end of the corridor, Stantel shook his head and cursed with a smile. "This stinky kid is such a big person, yet he is so restless and unstable." Stantel sat back on the chair and poured himself another cup of black tea. After a while, Manolin ran back with great enthusiasm. Fortunately, the level of the mechanic has been improved, which has improved Manolin's physical fitness. Otherwise, the original owner's physical fitness would not have been able to quickly travel back and forth to the 3rd floor. Manolin took a slight breath, placed the box in his hand in front of the table, and opened the lid. Stantel fixed his gaze and saw a mechanical arm filled with mechanical beauty placed in the box. "Oh! What is this?" Although Stantel is an expert in literature, he is also very interested in mechanics. He and Manolin's parents are both members of the same Mechanical Enthusiast Association, and they also got to know each other through it. The Machinery Enthusiast Association is a loose association composed of people who enjoy mechanical design and manufacturing. Their daily activity is to carry their own mechanical creations to learn how to boast about their mechanical creations and pick on the flaws of others. Seeing such exquisite and beautiful mechanical creations, I naturally developed a strong interest in Stantel. Seeing that Stantel was very interested, Manolin quickly explained. Teacher Stantel, this is the mechanical prosthetic I have created, using steam power and magical technology in the control system. Stantel gently lifted the mechanical prosthetics as if appreciating art, and gently caressed the mechanical creation in front of him as if caressing his lover. He sighed and said, I didn't expect you to inherit your parents' talent in mechanical manufacturing. No, it should be said that you far surpass them. Stantel glanced at Manolin and then asked, looking at the magical inscription on it, you must have become a professional, right? Yes, Teacher Stantel, I am already a second-level mechanic. Upon hearing this, Stantel nodded with satisfaction. Manolin saw that Stantel was very fond of mechanical prosthetics and said to Stantel. Teacher Stantel, since you like this mechanical creation so much, why don't I give it to you? Stantel reluctantly put down the mechanical prosthetic and fastened the box. No, it's so precious. Baby, I can't accept it. As he spoke, Stantel glanced at the box containing the mechanical prosthetic, as if bidding farewell to the treasure. Then, Stantel gritted his teeth again. However, I can buy it. I can offer 1,000 gold coins to purchase it. Stantel took out the checkbook from his pocket wallet and signed it while saying, this is a huge sum of money. You should know that the exchange ratio between silver coins and gold coins is 1.100, which means that Stantel spent 100,000 silver coins to purchase this mechanical prosthetic. 100,000 silver coins are the salary of an ordinary worker for 20.30 years. It is possible that Manolin is not tempted by this huge sum of money. With this money, many of his current difficulties will be easily solved. However, although he was very tempted, he still persisted in his principles. He pushed open the check handed over by Stantel and said to Stantel. Teacher Stantel, since I said I want to give it to you, how can I break my promise? But you can introduce me to a few more people who are interested in mechanical creations or disabled people with need. Seeing his resolute attitude, Stantel did not show too much affectation. Okay, since that's the case, I'll take this treasure as well. Then, he lightly brushed his beard and said. I happen to know a retired naval officer who lost his left arm on the battlefield. He is also a member of the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association and will definitely be interested in your mechanical prosthetics. Tomorrow is the day of the association's gathering. After the meeting, I will bring him over. Chapter 5. Magic Potions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cheers and cheers. After seeing off Stantel, who was like a child getting their favorite toy, Manolin opened the paper bag left by Stantel. As soon as the paper bag was opened, the aroma of roasted grains mixed with the peculiar taste of smoked meat challenged Manolin's taste buds. In the paper bag were several pieces of white bread and bacon. Manolin tore off a small piece of bread and put it in his mouth. The soft and slightly sweet taste of the white bread satisfied him very much. This is what people eat, sighed Manolin, who has been eating the cheapest black bread since his travels. Manolin looked at his pocket watch and it was already noon. He simply cut some bacon and ate it with bread. After eating and drinking enough, Manolin was about to brew a cup of black tea when a group of people burst into the clinic. This group of people carried a person covered in blood on a simple stretcher. Before Manolin could speak, he was pulled to the injured person. After examination, the injured person had 3 wounds in the abdomen, which should have been stabbed with a knife. Manolin quickly instructed the stretchers to carry the injured to the consultation room. The wound of the injured person was very deep, and 2 of them also injured the internal organs, one stabbing the liver and the other stabbing the kidney. If the level of ordinary medical skills in this world is used, this kind of injury is difficult to treat. Without blood transfusions and various life support equipment, it is almost impossible for Manolan to treat patients with excessive blood loss and severe visceral damage. However, this is a world with extraordinary powers, and most of the difficulties in medical skills can be solved through extraordinary means. Various magical and extraordinary methods have good and quick effects, with no drawbacks except for being very rare and expensive. The reason why the development of general medicine in this world is relatively slow is very important because it is under the pressure of this big brother with extraordinary power. If it weren't for the scarcity of extraordinary professionals in the legal system and the scarcity of extraordinary professionals with healing abilities, the world would have completely lost the soil for ordinary medical skills to survive. This injured person is too seriously injured. I'm going to use magic potions, do you agree? Manolan asked the crowd. Upon hearing the word magic potion, everyone's faces lit up with joy. They didn't expect a small clinic with little fame to have such a rare thing. Among these people, one of the leaders said, I am the third mate of the merchant ship Lifeone. The injured one is our captain. As long as you can cure him, money is not a problem. Manolan saw that they agreed to use magical potions, so he opened the safe in the consultation room. There is only one item in the safe, which is a beautifully designed box where the magic potion is stored. Looking at this box, Manolan was very distressed. This magical potion was obtained through many connections with the original owner's company before it went bankrupt. According to Manolan's current situation, it is difficult to obtain new magical potions. But saving people is important. Manolan took out the magic potion from the box and gently pried open the lead seal of the potion opening with a surgical knife. He used a needle to suck up the medicine completely without leaving any residue, and then walked towards the injured person. After cleaning the abdominal cavity with physiological saline, Manolan gently pushed the magical potion from the needle into the injured organ. With the entry of magical potions, the originally injured organs quickly heal as time accelerates. Until all the medication was administered, the visceral wounds had also healed. Upon seeing this, Manolan disinfected the abdominal cavity again and sutured the 3 wounds of the injured person. Perhaps due to the upgrade of his dexterity talent, the wound sewn by Manolan this time is noticeably more beautiful than the one sewn last time. The injured person has completed treatment, and the total cost of the surgery plus the cost of the magic potion is 200 gold coins. The third officer saw that his captain had been cured and happily took out his wallet from the captain's pocket. He counted out 20 large banknotes with a face value of 10 gold coins from the wallet. When Manolan asked the third mate if his captain would stay at the clinic for rest or leave, the third mate said that there were also ship doctors on the merchant ship who wanted to take the captain back for rest. After seeing off the group of people, Manolan locked the huge amount of money he had just received into a safe and sat back behind the counter humming a song. Manolan's mood was still very happy. Although he lost a priceless magical potion, he saved a person's life and earned 200 gold coins. With this sum of money, Manolan can say goodbye to his current difficult life completely. Since he has money, Manolan is naturally prepared to go and buy some daily necessities well. He picked up a pen and wrote a list of things he needed to buy in a notebook. I'm almost finished drinking black tea and coffee, so I need to buy some. There's no need to pick low-quality ores that the mining site doesn't want anymore. I also need to buy some fresh meat, salt, sugar. Manolan enthusiastically thought and wrote about the items he needed to purchase for half an hour, and the shopping list was almost filled with a piece of paper. Forget it, buy these for now, and remember the rest before buying. He closed his notebook in one go. The traveler, who has been frugal for a week, is preparing for a wave of retaliatory spending. Throughout the afternoon, only one patient arrived at the clinic, a businessman who had 2 front teeth knocked out. After spending 50 silver coins, he obtained 2 metal dentures made by Manolan using his metal control ability. False teeth are a practice of Manolan's metal control ability a few days ago, but he didn't expect to use them today. Manolan saw that there were no patients coming back for medical treatment, so he decided to close the clinic early today so that he could go shopping earlier. Grand City is not safe at night. At night, this city is dominated by vagrants, drunkards, and gangs. Manolan, who doesn't have much self-protection ability yet, doesn't want to experience the nights of Grand City. As a time traveler with a system, if you die from a robbery by a thug or get involved in a gang fight, it's really a joke. Red Maple Leaf Street is already the busiest street in Grand City, where most of the things Manolan wants to buy can be found. Manolan first purchased the one available on Hongfenji Street according to the purchase order and sent it back to the clinic. Subsequently, Manolan took a steam-powered taxi to a mining site in the suburbs of Green City to purchase a taxi of ore. Although the taxi driver was very puzzled by Manolan's behavior of purchasing minerals, his excellent professional ethics prevented him from asking anything. Relying on a taxi powered by pyroxene, Manolan returned to the clinic just as the sun had set. Even though it had already been upgraded to physical fitness, Manolan moved the ore in this car to the 3rd floor, still feeling tired and panting. However, Manolan couldn't rest. After taking a few breaths, he hastily ate some white bread and bacon. Tomorrow, Teacher Stantel may bring the disabled naval officer over. Although some parts of the mechanical prosthetics need to be customized in size due to different arm data for each person, some universal parts can still be made, and tonight, making some universal parts for assembling mechanical prosthetics is Manolan's task. In the process of extracting metals from various ores and making universal parts, Manolan worked until 11 p.m. At this moment, a wave of dizziness hit him, and Manolan could only hastily tidy up the things on the workbench before returning to the bedroom to sleep. Chapter 6. Enthusiastic Mechanical Enthusiasts Association. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At noon, Manolan rubbed his head with his hands while drinking coffee. The excessive use of metal control ability can cause headaches. We can't just mess around like this in the future. Manolan speculates that using metal control skills may require the consumption of mental energy and other things, as yesterday's short-term heavy use resulted in a deficit in mental energy, leading to physical discomfort. Due to excessive use of metal control abilities, he even disrupted his biological clock developed by previous work, and Manolan, who had a habit of waking up early, slept until noon this time. However, he has also become accustomed to the habit of opening a clinic and fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2 days. Especially now with sufficient funds, there is no life pressure or desire to quickly complete tasks and upgrade, causing Manolan to gradually slide towards the direction of salted fish. Sigh, no attendance check-ins, no mortgage or car loan, no annoying boss or leader, this kind of life is life. Manolan took a few sips of coffee, and after the refreshing effect of the coffee relieved his headache, he slowly leaned back in the chair inside. While he was lying back in his chair enjoying his leisure time, a group of unwelcome guests broke into the clinic. A total of over 30 people broke into the clinic, and this group of people filled the originally not particularly large clinic hall with stations. And the leader of this group is Stantel, who came yesterday. Alva's kid, I heard from this old man Stantel that his treasure was made by you. The guy who was the first to speak spoke while looking at the box held in Stantel's hand with his only remaining eye. The fiery gaze made Stantel tighten his arms around the box. I naturally made mechanical prosthetics. Manolan looked at the person while answering his inquiry. The person asking the question was dressed in a neatly ironed black dress, with a neat big back, a black eye mask on his left eye, and the left sleeve of his clothes was also empty. Standing there, he exuded a military aura. Manolan guessed that this person was the retired naval officer mentioned by Teacher Stantel. The naval officer looked at Manolan for a moment and then asked directly, "Listen to Stantel, can you help me make a prosthetic like his?" For this Manolan, it is natural to say yes. At this moment, Stantel also spoke up, "Cyclops John, I didn't lie to you, did I? My treasure is made by little Manolan. Teacher Stantel and everyone, please wait a moment. I will go upstairs to pick up the parts that have already been made. Talking too much is useless. Manolin went upstairs and took out the parts that were already made yesterday and a drawn drawing. For taking out the drawings, Manolin had no worries about them being plagiarized. According to his understanding, there is no extraordinary professional in manufacturing machinery in the entire Machinery Enthusiast Association. It is extremely difficult for ordinary people to make it. When Manolin placed the parts and drawings of the mechanical prosthetics on the table, not only Stantel and John, but also others were restless and wanted to look forward. Everyone, be quiet. Don't lose face with our Mechanical Enthusiasts Association in front of little Manolin. An old man with a grayish beard shouted out in full anger. Everyone heard the old man's shout, and the crowd gradually regained their rationality and no longer crowded forward blindly. Manolin knows the old man who is shouting. He is the president of the Machinery Enthusiasts Association, named Condolet. He is a wealthy ocean merchant with a whole fleet of ocean-going ships, and is very famous throughout Grand City. I even helped Manolin before he went bankrupt in business, but unfortunately, the original owner was not in the mood to bring the company bankrupt with the help of several influential people. Condolet pushed aside the crowd and picked up the blueprint of the mechanical prosthetic to read. What an exquisite design, a genius-like conception. Condolet was amazed by the drawings of mechanical prosthetics. Mr. John, do you want to customize a mechanical prosthetic? Said Conlet, who was already immersed in the drawings and ignored Manolin's attention. Of course, as long as you can make a mechanical prosthetic like Stantel's, it's not a problem how much it costs. John patted Manolin's shoulder heavily with his hand. Mr. John, I need to measure you in order to make a mechanical prosthetic for you. Manolin invited John to the consultation room and conducted a series of measurements on him. After the measurement was completed, Manolin told John that his mechanical prosthetic would take at least 3 days to complete. Upon learning that mechanical prosthetics could be completed in as little as 3 days, John happily gritted his teeth and took out his wallet. He shook his hand and took out 30 large bills worth 10 gold coins to slap in front of Manolin. Xiao Manolin, this is 300 gold coins, which can be considered as a deposit for me to customize a mechanical prosthetic. Manolin counted out 10 bills and handed them back to John. Mr. John, the mechanical prosthetic limb I made is ready to be sold for 200 gold coins. I will refund you the 100 gold coins. Manolin has almost no cost in making mechanical prosthetics except for time and some cheap metal ores. Originally, he set the price of mechanical prosthetics at 200 gold coins, which was already high enough, but he still underestimated the wealthy. John surprisingly made a deposit of 300 gold coins, allowing Manolin to see the diversity of the world. John did not receive the money handed back to him by Manolin. He waved his hand and said that the extra 100 gold coins were a tip given to him. Manolin saw John being so generous, but he didn't persist. Mr. John, I promise to make a mechanical prosthetic for you with care. John nodded without hesitation. Well, let me put it first. If the customized mechanical prosthetic for me is worse than the one you gave to Stantel, I would be unhappy. John didn't forget to raise his fist and threaten Manolin as he stepped out of the consultation room. After John and Manolin returned to the clinic lobby, everyone was queuing up to look at the drawings. Manolin thanked Stantel for introducing his business to Manolin. Stantel said, if you really want to thank me, then you can sell me more novel and exquisite mechanical creations in the future. No problem, Teacher Stantel. I will keep a copy for you whenever I create new things in the future. Manolin patted his chest to ensure. After everyone finished reading the drawings and parts, they learned that one of Manolin's mechanical prosthetics was only sold for 200 gold coins. A dozen or so people in this group directly expressed their desire to purchase a mechanical prosthetic for collection. Manolin was still surprised by how many people were willing to spend 200 gold coins on mechanical prosthetics. Although Manolin knew that the majority of the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association were wealthy, it was difficult for ordinary people struggling to have hobbies that consumed both time and money. But being willing to spend a huge sum of money like 200 gold coins to buy something they don't need has brought some kind of shock to the wealthy, to Manolan. Manolan cleared his throat and said to the crowd, "Everyone. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for liking the work I have created. However, my production speed is limited, and I can only produce one mechanical prosthetic in half a month. If you don't mind waiting for time, please register your name here." Chapter 7. Task completed, new mechanical drawings. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 8. New drawings and new technologies. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. With the advancement of the mechanic profession level to LV3, Manolan's body has undergone another comprehensive improvement. Manolan speculates that the physical fitness resulting from career-level improvement is an exponential increase. When the professional level is upgraded to LV3, the improvement in quality is more significant than when it is upgraded to LV2. And the improvement in talent is even greater. The range of metal control, which has been upgraded to LV3, has expanded to 4 meters, while LV3's dexterity talent allows Manolan's fingers to make various gestures. He can achieve eye-to-hand with his dexterity, and if Manolan travels back to the original world, he will no longer have the situation of brain can do it, hand cannot do it, when watching the Great God video with his dexterity. The increase in talent has greatly improved Manolan's medical skills. Now Manolan can confidently pat his chest to show that he is an excellent surgeon. And with the improvement of the dexterity talent, Manolan's metal control talent has also been improved in terms of fine operations. Due to the large number of people and diverse eyes in the clinic, Manolan was unable to experiment with his metal control talent, so he had to take a look at the new 2 blueprints. Secondary mechanical prosthetics. Kidneys, secondary steam rifle. Red Falcon, Manolan, who had some expectations for the extracted drawings, was somewhat disappointed when he saw these 2 drawings. Manolan still thought about working overtime to produce mechanical prosthetic drawings that would be helpful for the 4 severely injured patients and replace them, but now this plan has come to naught. Although 2 of these 4 severely injured patients have damaged their kidneys, they are still far from reaching the level of mechanical kidney replacement. As for the other blueprint of the secondary steam rifle, Red Falcon, Manolan was happy to have a weapon blueprint, but now the blueprint for treating the patient is completely ineffective. Can't we just shoot the patients and send them away? After receiving all the memories of the drawings, Manolan inspected all the patients. Subsequently, Manolan kept checking the condition of the severely injured patient for half an hour, while the lightly injured patient had 2 individuals with mild injuries and mobility go to the kitchen to cook some food for the other patients. Just as the 2 of them were getting up to cook, the door to the clinic was knocked on. The people who came were relatives of the injured. After those minor injuries returned home, they notified the relatives of the injured who were still staying at the clinic, and the relatives of the injured learned that their relatives were in Manolan's clinic and joined forces to come here. Some of these patient families expressed their intention to stay here to take care of the patients, while the rest returned to take care of the elderly and children after seeing their loved ones safe and sound. With the addition of a new force, Manolan suddenly became much more relaxed. At least the patient's food problem was solved. Manolan was originally worried that the clinic's food supply would not be enough for so many people to eat, but the patient's family brought some food to solve the urgent need. And the families of those 4 seriously injured patients were able to take care of them to some extent, which saved Manolan a lot of trouble. In this way, Manolan maintained the frequency of checking severely injured patients every half hour and passed this sleepless night. In the morning, Manolan checked the condition of the seriously injured patient again. I don't know if it's because people from other worlds have higher physical fitness than those from the original world, or if these 4 seriously injured patients have better luck. These 4 severely injured patients survived the most difficult first night, and they were able to survive on their own without various sanitary equipment like in the original world. This means that as long as the wound is not infected, these injured people are likely to survive. Manolan is planning to close the clinic today, as he is currently the only one in the clinic and cannot take care of some more patients. In addition, the trauma suffered by the current patients is not suitable for Manolan to treat other patients and prevent others from bringing in pathogens. Torres arrived at the clinic early in the morning and was greatly surprised after learning about the patient's condition. He repeatedly praised Manolan's medical skills and the luck of severely injured patients. Later, Torres took out 11 bills with a face value of 1 gold coin from his wallet and said, "This is the medical expenses paid by the insurance company for the workers. You can hold this money until the insurance company pays the remaining amount, and I will give it to you." After seeing Manolan accept the money, he said, "Don't forget to give me a receipt. Without a receipt, the hospital can't do the accounting." Seeing that Torres was in a good mood, Manolan joked, "Señor Torres, should I issue a larger receipt?" Novak waved his hands repeatedly. "I dare not do this. If I'm caught, the hospital and insurance company won't spare me." Manolan smiled a few times and then helped Torres issue a receipt. After filling in the amount and name on the receipt, Manolan handed it to Torres. After seeing Torres carefully collecting his receipt, Manolan asked Novak, "Torres has been missing out on you since he graduated from school. How have you been these years? What else can we do?" "I can only say we can make do with it." Then Torres began to recount his experiences over the past few years. After graduation, Novak, due to his poor family background, could not open a clinic like Manolan, so he had to work at the Holy Mary Joya Hospital. At first, with Torres' strong medical skills, he could be said to have had a smooth sailing. He married the most beautiful girl in the entire hospital and gave birth to a son. He gradually rose to the position of deputy chief physician, the youngest chief physician in the entire hospital who did not rely on connections. Torres's good luck has come to an end. He broke through the good deed of the deputy director of the hospital and protected a nurse who was about to be violated. The result was that Torres went from being a deputy chief physician with a bright future to becoming the deputy head of the medical department. And his deputy department head is responsible for managing hospital hygiene. This matter is not over yet, and the vice dean often suppresses him for nothing. Torres was originally planning to resign directly and no longer be insulted by this vice dean, but who knew that hemp rope would be carefully cut, and bad luck would only come to those who suffer. Torres's wife has an incurable disease that cannot be treated with conventional medical techniques and can only rely on magical potions to try her luck. Torres spent all his savings and went through all his relationships before getting a bottle of magical potion from his teacher to treat his illness. Unfortunately, the potion did not cure his wife's illness. Torres can only lead a difficult life with a 2-year-old child. Torres was unable to resign from his job at the Holy Maria Hospital due to debt repayment and the need to support his child. Fortunately, 3 months ago, the vice dean who was causing trouble for Torres died on a woman's stomach due to excessive use of prohibited drugs. Because the vice dean who made things difficult for him died, the power of that vice dean also fell and scattered. Torres has no one to deal with him specifically, and recently Torres is still trying to find a way to reassign to another department. However, because the head and deputy directors of each department are like a carrot and a pit, only Torres can fill the vacancies in other departments. Torres introduced his own experience and also asked about Manolan's experiences over the years. Manolan also explained his own experiences over the years. After learning about Manolan's experience, Torres showed a sympathetic expression. Torres patted Manolan's shoulder as a sign of comfort. After inquiring about Novak's absence this morning, Manolan asked Torres to take care of the patients at the clinic first, and he was preparing to go out and purchase some things. After a day of use yesterday, almost all the consumables used for the trauma of Manolan have been used up. His main task today is to purchase more disinfectants, painkillers, bandages, sutures, anti-inflammatory drugs, and so on. Although there seem to be many types of products that need to be purchased, due to the fact that they are all medical products, Manolan directly contacted a medical product company to purchase them together. Although the price of purchasing from a medical product company is slightly higher than directly contacting the manufacturer, nowadays Manolan is not inferior to these 3 melons and 2 dates, and it is also very troublesome for the manufacturer to purchase. So Manolan still decided to purchase from a medical product company. After the purchase was completed, Manolan requested the personnel of the medical product company to deliver the goods to the clinic, and took a taxi back to the clinic. Before returning to the clinic, Manolan also purchased some ready-to-eat food. With so many injured people needing treatment recently, he doesn't expect to start a fire and cook. In the next few days, he could only use these things to cushion his stomach. At this time, Manolan couldn't help but miss the days in the old world where he could order takeout with just his phone. Chapter 9. Successful Transplantation of Mechanical Prosthetics. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Senor Torres, I'm back. How is the patient's condition? Manolan pushed open the door of the clinic and said to Torres. I just finished the examination and the patient's condition is normal. Torres, who was writing and drawing with his head buried, said without looking up. Manolan was curious when he saw what Torres was writing and asked, What are you writing, Senor Torres? Torres still hasn't looked up. Patient medical records, all patients need to be recorded for easy follow-up and reference in the future. This should have been taught in my freshman year. Torres paused, and he remembered that Manolan was a half-monk. Torres realized the awkwardness of the current topic and quickly shifted the conversation, saying, what did you buy when you went out? I bought a lot of things, could you please move them back together with the senior? Manolan and Torres had to go back and forth several times before moving the things Manolan had bought into the clinic lobby. Manolan, what did you buy? Why is it so heavy? Torres, exhausted and panting heavily, complained about Manolan. Torres, who has not exercised for years, is already exhausted from just moving a few boxes. Senor Torres, your physical fitness is not good. Look, I moved more than twice as much as you and I'm not tired at all. Manolan gave Torres a tap and he stumbled. Torres was not annoyed even after being photographed. He looked at Manolan with some envy and said, Look at your physical fitness. What level of extraordinary profession is it? I just became a superhero, still at level 1. Manolan said vaguely. All extraordinary professionals in the Elliott Federation need to register in specific places. Unregistered extraordinary professionals like Manolan are strictly classified as black households, and the department responsible for managing extraordinary professionals may find it somewhat troublesome. There are 2 reasons why we don't register. One is that his extraordinary profession as a mechanic is given by the system, and he has no apprenticeship at all. It is impossible for a person to become a professional out of thin air, and he cannot explain clearly the source of extraordinary knowledge. If this reason is a minor matter, then the second reason is that Manolan does not want to register as the main reason. He is a traveler, who knows if this world has discovered his means. Especially since he is still very weak, he dare not wander in front of those legal professionals who may discover his uniqueness. After blowing black tea, Torres said to Manolan, You can become a professional, even at the lowest level, more than many ordinary people like me. Since that incident happened like me. I really admire the perseverance of a junior who hasn't given up on exercising even after several years. For Torres's praise and admiration, Manolan is still quite awkward. His extraordinary professional mechanic was sent by the system. And upgrading is nothing more than reading medical books for a few days, treating a few patients, and completing several system tasks, which is completely unrelated to words like hard work and perseverance. And Torres, who is recognized as a genius in school, did not become a professional for a reason. Although Torres didn't say it, in fact, Manolan knows the whole story. A few years ago, several medical schools of universities jointly launched a physician career program. The purpose is to create an extraordinary profession for physicians. Creating an extraordinary profession is a very difficult task, and it can be said that timing, location, and people are indispensable. At that time, many extraordinary professionals and medical masters related to treatment were involved in this project. As a medical genius, Torres also participated in the project as a volunteer. Later, I don't know what accident happened, but the experiment of promoting volunteers to become physicians failed. Once such experiments to create new extraordinary professions fail, there will be significant consequences for those attempting to advance to new extraordinary professions. The most common consequence is the difficulty of promoting to other professions. Torres is unable to be promoted to a potion master for this reason. Manolin didn't want to talk about these topics anymore, so he changed the subject. I've been too busy lately and don't have time to cook for myself, so I bought a few boxes of canned food and prepared to eat. Manolin also opened a box full of tin cans. These canned goods are all high-end goods from the Jorge Wells factory, and even the naval officers' masters ordered them from it. How about that? Let's open 2 cans this afternoon and try it out. Although Torres was somewhat interested in high-end canned goods, he still refused in the end. No, I have to go back to take care of the child at noon. Manolin did not persuade Torres to refuse on the grounds of having a child. After inspecting the injured patients at the clinic again with Torres, Torres requested to leave. You stay here for a moment, I'll go back. Greeting Torres to wait for him in the lobby for a while, Manolin climbed up the 3rd floor. He found a robot model he had created to practice his metal control ability from the storage cabinet under the workbench. The model is 15 centimeters tall and made entirely of metal, with no color applied throughout the body. Because it was made with the ability of metal control, he stole a lot of weight, making the model not too heavy. Manolin stood the model on the workbench, at which point anyone from the original world would definitely recognize it. Yes, the robot model made by Manolin is the world-renowned Transformers Optimus Prime. The things Manolin made were all his idle attempts. If you want to sell these things, there are many flaws, some of which are difficult to handle. And he doesn't have any channels yet, so it feels a bit wasteful to just use his abilities to melt it. However, it's not bad to give these things to children as toys, they just happen to be useless. He packed the model and 2 cans of beef in a craft paper bag and handed it to Torres. Here, this can be considered a gift from me to your son. Torres was about to refuse when he was pushed out of the clinic by Manolin. He has been exhausted from taking care of patients these past few days and doesn't even want to be polite to Torres. After seeing off Torres, Manolin was not idle either. The mechanical prosthetics agreed upon with John are about to be delivered, and he doesn't want to break his promise. Apart from resting for a while after eating 2 cans at noon, Manolin has not been idle all day. He didn't have time to rest until late at night after checking the condition of all the patients. Sigh, I feel like my legs have run thin all day. Manolin was pounding his legs while complaining. He ran between the workshop and the consultation room today, and even with his strengthened body, he couldn't bear it anymore. Another reason why Manolin is so tired is that he even tidied up a room on the 2nd floor of the clinic, preparing it for use as an operating room. Not to mention that John, the wealthy man, will have nowhere to do a prosthetic transplant surgery tomorrow, but to mention that so many patients came yesterday without a place for treatment, he also needs to expand the scope of the clinic's work area. As the clinic was almost on track, Manolin also thought of hiring some people to help. Now Manolin doesn't have much money to spare, so hiring a few people is not a problem. It's a bit difficult for Manolin to recruit people there. His ideal recruitment of personnel does not require a certain level of medical knowledge, but at the very least, he must treat patients seriously and responsibly. Manolin was a laborer in his past life and had no experience in recruiting workers. The original owner had hired workers before going bankrupt, but with his ability to quickly bankrupt a large company, Manolin couldn't believe the original owner's memory. The next day, Manolin still brewed a cup of coffee as usual and sat behind the counter drinking slowly. "Dr. Manolin, my brother is awake. Please go and take a look." A 12-year-old boy ran up to Manolin and excitedly said. The young man's name is Fords, and he is the youngest and most severely injured brother among the 4 seriously injured soldiers, named Fordlow. Upon hearing this news, Manolin was also very surprised because Fudlow was the last of the 4 seriously injured patients to wake up. The other 3 seriously injured patients gradually regained consciousness during yesterday's day and night. Manolin couldn't help but marvel at the physical strength of people from other worlds. Not only did they survive such severe injuries, but they also quickly regained consciousness, making him exclaim outrageous. After waking up, Fodlow was fed some warm water by Fords and fell asleep again. Watching Fords carefully tidying up Fudlow's bedding, Manolin couldn't help but feel pity. If the original owner is a microcosm of the world's aristocratic and wealthy spendthrifts, then the brothers Fudlow and Fuds are a microcosm of the tragic working-class family in this world. According to Ford's own introduction and casual conversations with other patients and family members with relatively minor injuries, it was found that the mother of the Ford brothers died shortly after being born in Ford, and the father also died 3 years ago due to a childbirth accident. At the age of only 14, Fudlow resolutely shouldered the heavy burden of his family. He dropped out of school and started working in a factory to support himself and his younger brother, who was less than 10 years old at the time. Nowadays, Fudlow will be left with disabilities and serious injuries after being injured, which is even worse for the Fudlow brothers, who are already not wealthy families. The combination of a disabled brother and a young brother is despairing. As for the compensation from the factory owner. For factory owners whose interests are damaged, it's not bad not to scrape some oil and water off these workers, but can they still expect compensation? After examining the condition of severely injured patients, including Fodlow, Manolin returned to the counter in the clinic lobby to continue drinking his coffee. Not long after, John walked in with a person wearing a Navy uniform. Arnold Alfred didn't know if he had been drugged with some kind of intoxicating soup and wanted to go to Manolin, an unreliable person, for surgery, especially a prosthetic transplant. Arnold will never forget Manolin, the person who made him the laughingstock of the Navy. Every time he thought of Manolin, his buttocks would ache faintly. If it weren't for Uncle John's friend Stantel interceding for Manolin, Arnold would have wanted to shoot this bastard. After seeing the person following John, Manolin instinctively wanted to hide under the counter. "I brought my nephew over with me, Xiao Manolin. You should know him, right?" John sounded with a hint of mockery. "Ah. Manolin has some stuttering. I didn't expect the instructor who was shot in the butt by him back then to be John's nephew. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you again, Instructor Arnold." "Humph." He let out a heavy snort, and then Arnav remained silent with a cold face. The awkward Manolin, John watching the play, and Arnav staring at Manolin with a cold face formed a strange scene. "Mr. John, your mechanical prosthetic is ready." Manolin, who couldn't withstand the pressure, was the first to break the silence. He took out the mechanical prosthetics and some accessories that were placed in the counter cabinet. Arnold saw the exquisitely crafted mechanical prosthetics and the magical inscriptions engraved on them, but did not speak out to dissuade John. Although he didn't know much about mechanical knowledge, he could still see that Manolin's mechanical prosthetics were exquisitely crafted. "Since you have already made the mechanical prosthetic, little Manolin, hurry up and replace it for me." John, as a mechanical enthusiast, couldn't wait to see mechanical prosthetics. Manolin quickly agreed to John's request and said, "In that case, please Mr. John and I go to the operating room together." The surgery lasted for over 2 hours, but fortunately, the injuries of the 4 severely injured patients have stabilized and do not require frequent examination, otherwise John's mechanical prosthetic transplant surgery would have to be postponed. With the gift of agility, the surgery was very successful. As the effectiveness of the anesthetic faded, John gradually regained consciousness. Because the surgery for mechanical prosthetic limb transplantation required complex operations on both nerves and muscles, Manolan simply gave John general anesthesia. As a professional, John has a very strong resistance to drugs. At John's request, Manolan injected him with 10 times the dose of anesthesia to allow him to enter anesthesia normally. And even at a dose 10 times that of a normal person, John regained consciousness in just 3 hours. After waking up, John was also lively as if he had not been anesthetized. After Manolan added water to the mechanical prosthetics and placed ignited pyroxene stones. Steam drives the lever, and the magic circle shimmers with a faint light. John was pleasantly surprised to find that this mechanical prosthetic seemed to be his original arm, and he could control it as he pleased, even receiving feedback on touch from the prosthetic. John used a mechanical prosthetic to almost touch the entire operating room, but before he had enough fun, he almost approached Manolan and Arnav. Manolan was frightened and quickly stopped. "Mr. John, your mechanical prosthetic has just been transplanted, please do not overuse it." After being stopped by Manolan, John stopped continuing his actions. Upon seeing this, Manolan continued to instruct. Mr. John's mechanical prosthetic is a steam-powered machine powered by pyroxene. Please don't forget to add fuel and water. In addition, mechanical prosthetics require regular maintenance. I have reserved maintenance windows and lubrication holes, and of course, you can also come to me for maintenance. The precautions that Manolan instructed were completely insignificant for a mechanical enthusiast, and although John was a bit impatient, he did not interrupt. After listening to Manolan's pile of precautions, John, anxious to show off to the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association, led Arnold to bid farewell to Manolan. Arnold looked at Manolan with complex eyes and left behind John without saying a word. Chapter 10. New Tasks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The heavy rain brought by the summer monsoon is hitting the glass of the clinic. Manolan sat at the counter assembling a large red gun, while the short Fords was sweeping the floor with a broom that was almost taller than him. On the second floor of the clinic, Ford Lowe, leaning on a cane, was frying steak. It has been over a month since John was transplanted with a mechanical prosthetic. During this period, all the minor and severe injuries who came to the clinic for treatment due to the factory explosion have returned home one after another, which has made Manolan, who is busy every day, feel relaxed. As for why the brothers Fuds and Fudlow are still staying at the clinic, the reason is simple. Manolan hired these two brothers as laborers at the clinic. After recovering, Fudlow returned to the factory where he used to work. The HR supervisor of the factory saw that Fudlow was already disabled and naturally fired him, without even giving Fudlow his remaining salary. After Manolan heard the injured man who had changed his dressing mention this, he came up with the idea of hiring the brothers Fudlow and Fuds. His idea of hiring these two brothers was not a last-minute initiative. He was the only one in the clinic, not only to treat patients but also to make mechanical items. In addition, he also had to do miscellaneous tasks such as cleaning and cooking. Under the overwhelming pressure of these chaotic things, Manolan felt as if he had returned to his previous life as a factory dog in the 996 factory. Now that Manolan has money, he naturally has no pressure to hire some people to clean and cook. As for why the Fudlow brothers were hired, the reason is also simple. On the one hand, Manolan sympathizes with the tragic situation of these two brothers. On the other hand, Manolan also gained an understanding of the personalities of these two brothers during his treatment at Fudlow. From the usual behavior of the two brothers and the few words spoken between the other injured and their families, Manolan felt that these two brothers had good character. Fudlow, who came forward to change clothes in Manolan, and Fodes, who accompanied him, offered an invitation to hire him, and were greeted by two pairs of incredibly bright eyes. Manolan hired these two brothers at a price of 10 silver coins per person per day, but unlike those factory owners, his clinic only needed to work 9 hours a day, starting from 8 a.m. and ending at 5 p.m., with a lunch included every day. This treatment is very generous throughout the entire city of Gran. The Fodes brothers also lived up to Manolin's kindness towards them. The two brothers worked very hard in the clinic, which saved Manolin a lot of time. The only downside is that the cultural level of these two brothers is really limited, and many jobs require Manolin to do them himself. However, Manolin is also trying his best to make up for it. Fudlo dropped out of school at the age of 14, so he still has some confidence. Manolin bought several school textbooks for him to self-study. And Fuds was a bit troublesome because when the father of the two brothers passed away, Fuds was less than 10 years old and he had not attended school at that time. Fuds also had no money to pay for school fees when his father passed away. This resulted in Fuds receiving almost no education except for occasional instruction from Fudlo to recognize certain characters. Manolin had no choice but to let Fudlo teach his younger brother some basic knowledge during his leisure time at work. Fortunately, these two brothers are working very hard in their studies, especially their older brother Fudlo, who is now able to read some books in full. For nearly a month, Manolin was not too idle. He delivered all the mechanical prosthetics ordered by the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association one after another. This also brought Manolin a large amount of gold coins. It has to be said that the people of the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association are really passionate about mechanical creations. After John went to the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association to show off with mechanical prosthetics, several members of the Mechanical Enthusiasts Association came over the same day to ask Manolin if he could cut off his arm and replace it with a mechanical prosthetic. Manolin was deeply impressed by these guys' love for machinery and decisively refused them. Leaving aside the moral issues associated with replacing mechanical prosthetics for these healthy individuals, even if their families know about this, they cannot spare Manolin. After assembling the firearms, Manolin opened the system panel, the strongest mechanist/physician system occupation. Mechanist, level LV3, 490/500, talent. Dexterity, LV3, you have a pair of agile hands that can flexibly manufacture and control machinery. Metal control, LV3, you can control changes in metal shape and properties over a large range. Task. Daily task, successful treatment of a patient, 0/1, reward lottery *1, weekly task, successfully treated 20 patients, 15/20, rewarded with secondary mechanical drawings X2. A monthly task, successfully treated 100 patients, 12/100, with mechanical heart ×1, annual task, successfully treated 2,000 patients, 136/2000, with Titan class armor blueprint X1, career task, 1, becoming the most famous doctor in the Elliott Federation, 869/50000000. Destructive floating fortress blueprint X1. With the completion of the last beginner's task, Manolin guessed that he had completed the beginner's guide, and 5 tasks were scrolled out of any list at once. Most of the items drawn from the lottery coupons given in the daily task are useless, such as common materials such as iron ingots, copper ingots, wooden blocks, lubricating oil, etc. However, occasionally useful things are pulled out, such as some broken machinery. Manolin had already drawn a damaged laser gun the day before yesterday. Although the laser gun is broken and unlikely to be repaired, it still has great research value for Manolin. The weekly task is the main way for Manolin to obtain drawings. As Manolin completed 4 weekly tasks this month, he also obtained 8 secondary mechanical drawings. These secondary mechanical drawings are: secondary mechanical prosthetic limbs. Legs, secondary mechanical prosthetic limbs. Heart, secondary mechanical prosthetic limbs. Head, secondary mechanical prosthetic limbs. Lung, secondary mechanical prosthetic limbs. Digestive system, secondary mechanical short tube rapid shooting cannon. Emerald bird, secondary mechanical small missile. Dancing fly, and secondary mechanical steam shotgun. Hyacinth gun. Nowadays, Manolin has almost obtained all the prosthetic drawings of his body, which means that theoretically, patients can treat any trauma and most organic lesions as long as they preserve their brain and spine. As for why in theory. In the current situation where Manolan does not have special healing abilities, it is a miracle that ordinary people can survive through this entire set of transplant surgeries. After Manolan drew the mechanical prosthetic blueprint for his leg last week, he first made one for Fudlo to replace. However, Fudlo's physical fitness is far inferior to that of John, a high-level warrior professional. John was able to use mechanical prosthetics with ease after undergoing a transplant surgery and the anesthesia had expired. And after almost a week of undergoing a transplant surgery, Fudlo can only rely on crutches to move around. It will take at least a month for Fudlo to walk normally. However, this news is already a huge surprise for Fudlo. Fudlo, who had already been disabled for his entire life, could no longer express his gratitude to Manolan. He can only silently swear to be loyal to Manolan for a lifetime, even if he sacrifices his life. The reward for the monthly task, Mechanical Heart, is even better. Mechanical Heart is equivalent to embedding a gemstone in Manolan's mechanical creations, similar to the gemstone embedded in equipment in online games. Manolan conducted experiments with mechanical prosthetics, which were embedded with a mechanical heart and showed significant improvements in both toughness, strength, and speed. Annual task, rewarding the Titan-class mech Manolan is also very much anticipated, after all, which man can refuse romantic mechs? As for the destruction level floating fortress Manolan mentioned in Career Task 1, although he was also very eager, the conditions for completing the career task left him somewhat puzzled. Manolan speculated that the conditions for completing Career Task 1 may be reputation or recognition, and he did not conduct detailed experiments. However, as the progress bar kept rising, Manolan didn't care much and let it go. Another reason why Manolan doesn't care about Career Task 1 is that the floating fortress is not something he can create now, and he can only wait and worry when he receives the blueprint. Manolan looked at the system task page, glanced at the progress of the task, and then closed the system panel. The mechanic profession will soon be upgraded, and he has decided to read more medical books in the next few days to improve his level as soon as possible.